What happens when a group of people simply vanishes from the face of the earth? This is not a question from a science fiction story. It is a genuine mystery from our own history. We must travel back in time over 400 years ago to a small island off the coast of what is now North Carolina. This is where a brave group of English settlers attempted to build a new home. They were seeking opportunity, a fresh start far from the old world they knew. Their story, however, does not have a clear ending. It is a tale that has puzzled historians and captured our imaginations for generations, leaving us to wonder about their ultimate fate. In the year 1587, a ship carrying more than 100 men, women and children crossed the vast Atlantic Ocean. They were sponsored by Sir Walter Raleigh, a wealthy and ambitious Englishman with dreams of empire. Their destination was Roanoke Island, a place chosen to become the first permanent English settlement in North America. These were not just soldiers or explorers, they were families. They brought with them their hopes for a better life, filled with the promise of land, freedom, and prosperity. Among them was a man named John White, an artist and the governor of this new colony. He was also a grandfather, as his daughter gave birth to the first English child in the Americas, Virginia Dare. The settlers arrived on the island and began the hard work of building their lives from scratch. They had to construct homes to protect themselves from the elements. They needed to clear land to plant crops for food. Life was not easy, and their relationship with the local Native American tribes was complicated and often tense. The land was unfamiliar, and the challenges were immense. Yet they persevered, driven by the belief that they could succeed. They were pioneers on the edge of a vast, unknown continent, a small flicker of English presence in a world that was entirely new to them. Their small village was a testament to their courage and their determination to survive. Their initial plan was to settle further north in the Chesapeake Bay area, which was thought to be a more suitable location. However, a dispute with the ship's pilot forced them to disembark at Roanoke Island instead. This was the site of a previous failed military expedition, and the remnants of that earlier attempt were still visible. This change in plans may have been the first in a series of unfortunate events that sealed their destiny. The colonists had to make the best of their situation, repairing the old fort and houses left behind. They were isolated with only the supplies they brought with them to sustain them until more could arrive from England. Their future was uncertain from the very start. As the first few months passed on Roanoke Island, the colonists realized a critical problem. Their supplies were running dangerously low. The harsh realities of their new environment meant they would not have enough food and tools to last through the coming winter. A difficult decision had to be made. Someone needed to sail back to England to gather more provisions and reinforcements for the struggling community. The colonists chose their governor, John White, for this vital mission. He was reluctant to leave his family, especially his newborn granddaughter, Virginia Dare. But he knew the survival of the entire colony depended on his journey. With a heavy heart, John White bid farewell to the 115 settlers and set sail for England in late 1587. He promised them he would return as quickly as possible, hopefully within a few months. He carried with him the hopes and prayers of every person he left behind on that lonely island. His voyage across the Atlantic was successful, and he arrived in England ready to plead the colony's case for immediate assistance. He began organizing the relief mission, gathering the food, tools, and people needed to support the settlement. But fate, it seems, had other plans. His mission was about to face an unexpected and massive obstacle. Just as White was preparing to sail back to America, a major political crisis erupted. England found itself on the brink of war with the powerful nation of Spain. The mighty Spanish Armada, a massive fleet of warships, was preparing to invade England. In response, Queen Elizabeth I commanded that all available ships, including the one John White had intended to use, be used for the defense of the realm. No vessels were permitted to leave English ports for distant voyages. White's urgent mission to save his colony was suddenly put on hold indefinitely. He was trapped, forced to wait while his friends and family waited for him across the ocean. For 3 long years, John White was stranded in England. The war with Spain raged on, and every attempt he made to secure a ship and return to Roanoke was met with failure. We can only imagine his growing anxiety and fear. With each passing season, the chances of the colonists' survival grew slimmer. He must have thought about them every single day, wondering if they were still alive, if they had managed to find food, and if they had kept their hope. Finally, in 1590, long after the threat of the Spanish Armada had passed, he was able to secure passage on a privateering expedition. His long-delayed journey back to his family and his colony could at last begin. In August of 1590, John White finally saw the shores of Roanoke Island once again. His heart must have been pounding with a mix of hope and dread. As his ship approached the settlement, he looked for signs of life. He expected to see smoke rising from chimneys or people running to the shore to greet him. But the island was eerily quiet. A strange and unsettling silence had fallen over the place where a bustling village should have been. As he and his landing party stepped onto the shore, their calls and shouts were met with no reply. The settlement he had left 3 years earlier appeared to be completely deserted. White and his men walked cautiously toward the site of the colony. What they found was both puzzling and deeply disturbing. The houses had all been carefully dismantled, not violently destroyed. This suggested the colonists had not been attacked, but had left in an organized manner. There were no human remains, no signs of a struggle or a battle. It was as if the more than 100 men, women and children had simply packed up their belongings and walked away. The entire community had vanished without a trace, leaving behind an empty clearing where their homes once stood. The mystery of their disappearance was just beginning to unfold for the heartbroken governor. As they searched the empty settlement, they discovered a vital clue. Carved into a wooden post of the fort's entrance was a single word: Croatoan. White also found the letters CRO carved into a nearby tree. This was a significant message. Before he had left for England, he had arranged a secret code with the colonists. If they had to leave Roanoke Island for any reason, they were to carve their destination into a tree or post. If they were in danger or had been forced to leave, they were to carve a Maltese cross above the name. There was no cross, which gave White hope that his family and the other colonists were safe. Croatoan was the name of a nearby island, now known as Hatteras Island, located to the south. It was also the name of a friendly Native American tribe that lived there. This seemed to be the clear answer White was looking for. His people had relocated to Croatoan Island. He was eager to sail there immediately to find them. However, his plans were once again thwarted by circumstances beyond his control. A powerful storm began to brew, making it too dangerous for the ships to navigate the treacherous coastal waters. The ship's captain, concerned for the safety of his vessel and crew, refused to risk the journey and insisted they return to England. John White never saw America again. The mystery of what happened to the Roanoke colonists has never been definitively solved, but several compelling theories have emerged over the centuries. The most widely accepted theory is that the settlers did exactly what their message suggested. They left Roanoke Island and went to live with the Croatoan people on the neighboring island. It is possible they assimilated into the tribe, intermarrying and adopting their way of life. Later, English explorers and settlers in the region reported hearing stories of pale-skinned, light-eyed Native Americans who claimed to have ancestors who could speak from a book. This oral history suggests that some of the colonists survived by joining the local population. Another theory proposes a more tragic end for the colonists. Perhaps they attempted to sail back to England on their own. They had a small ship, a pinnace that might have been capable of making the journey. However, the Atlantic Ocean is a vast and unforgiving place. A small, overcrowded vessel would have stood little chance against the powerful storms common to the region. If they did attempt this desperate voyage, they were likely lost at sea, their ship and all its passengers swallowed by the waves. This would explain the lack of any physical evidence of their fate on land, as their story would have ended far from the shore. A darker theory speculates that the colonists met a violent end. While their relationship with the Croatoan tribe was friendly, their interactions with other more powerful tribes in the area were not. It is possible that after John White left, tensions escalated, leading to a conflict. The colonists, weakened by a lack of supplies, might have been attacked, and either killed or taken captive by a hostile tribe. The lack of bodies at the site could be explained if they were taken elsewhere. This theory paints a grim picture of the settlers' final days, one of struggle and defeat in a land that was not yet their own. Today, more than 4 centuries later, the story of the lost colony of Roanoke continues to fascinate us. It is America's oldest unsolved mystery, a historical puzzle with a crucial piece missing. Archaeologists continue to search for clues, digging on Roanoke and Hatteras Islands, hoping to unearth an artifact that could finally tell us what happened. The story touches on our deepest fears of the unknown and our fascination with survival. It reminds us of the courage and the peril faced by the first Europeans to seek a new life in America. The empty settlement and the single cryptic word Croatoan are all that remain of their dream, a silent testament to a group of people lost to time but not to memory.